All right, everyone, buckle up, because today we're going deep on something we all crave, right? Hope, that
Yeah.
feeling, that keeps us going when things get rough. But, and here's the thing, hope is a lot more complicated than just wishing on a star or whatever.
It definitely is. Hope is a powerful psychological force.
Oh, yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is. Tied up with our values and emotions, and even how we see the world.
So to kick things off, let's talk about this guy, Wiltold Pilecki, a Polish soldier during World War II.
Hmm.
So picture this.
Uh-huh.
1940, Nazis have taken over Poland. And Pilecki, he does the unthinkable.
What's that?
He volunteers to be imprisoned in Auschwitz.
Oh, wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't like on a suicide mission or anything.
Yeah.
No. He wanted to gather information and organize resistance from inside the camp.
Oh, wow. To even think of that plan, let alone actually do it, you'd have to have, like, superhuman levels of hope and resilience.
Totally.
But
And Auschwitz was just pure horror. Pilecki, he saw it all, the brutality, everything. But he didn't just survive. He thrived. He created a whole spy network, smuggled out reports, even planned an uprising. Like,
yeah.
seriously, if hope can bloom in a place like Auschwitz, it's got to be some powerful stuff, right?
Pilecki's story, it really shows how hope can drive us to do extraordinary things, but it also, shows the dark side of hope, too.
Oh.
Yeah, how it can be twisted, even exploited, lead to messed up belief systems.
Which brings us to the main source for this deep dive. Mark Manson's book, Everything is Fcked. Now, don't let the title scare you off.
Right.
This book is not all doom and gloom, okay?
Okay.
Manson, he digs into the psychology of hope and makes this really bold claim. He says hope is how we cope with a kind of like a fundamental truth about, well, about existence, the fact that we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And that on a cosmic scale, most of what we do won't really matter.
He calls it the uncomfortable truth.
Yeah.
And he's right. It's heavy stuff, can be scary,
Uh-huh.
even lead to, like, despair. But hope, it's kind of like this buffer,
Yeah.
helps us handle that existential dread.
So we create stories, beliefs, values, anything to give meaning to our lives. But here's the thing. We're living longer, healthier, wealthier lives than ever. By all objective measures, things are pretty good.
They are.
Right. But we're also seeing like this huge spike in depression and anxiety. It's almost like the better things get, the worse we feel.
Yeah, and actually research shows that since 1985, there's been a decrease in overall life satisfaction.
Really?
Yeah, it's a paradox, and it's all about how our minds work. Turns out, humans, we aren't always as logical as we like to think.
You're telling me, have you seen like the comments section on any news article lately?
Oh, I try to avoid those.
It's like a complete dumpster fire of outrage.
Right. We're living in times of peace and prosperity, but our brains, they're still wired to, be on the lookout for danger. So we end up making mountains out of molehills, seeing threats that aren't really there. Mark Manson explains this using something he calls Newton's laws of emotion. He compares them to the laws of physics, shows how these emotional forces affect how we act and see the world.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down. What's this first law of emotion all about?
So the first law says that for every action, there's this equal and opposite emotional reaction. So basically, we're hardwired to want to balance things out. Like if someone cuts you off in traffic, you feel this urge to like honk your horn or, maybe flip them the bird.
Oh, I'm very familiar with that urge,
Yeah,
especially during rush hour.
Exactly. You want to make things fair again.
Right.
Even if it's just in your head. Our emotions, they drive us to create balance.
So how does that connect to this whole like paradox of progress we're talking about?
Well, because as our lives get better, our expectations change too. What used to feel good, it becomes like the new normal. And we start obsessing over these tiny little problems. It's like we're on this treadmill, always running, never really getting anywhere.
Ugh, I hate treadmills. This emotional treadmill, it sounds even worse. So are we stuck? Like, is there any way to get off this crazy thing?
There might be.
Okay.
But first, we got to understand another interesting quirk about how our minds work. It's called the blue dot effect. So researchers, they showed people a bunch of dots. Some blue, some purple. And when they showed fewer blue dots, people started thinking the purple dots were actually blue.
Wait, so our brains like fill in the blanks based on what we think we should see, not what's really there.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah, it is. And this isn't just about colored dots. It affects how we see threats, opportunities, even our own potential. Just imagine how this affects our sense of hope.
Yeah.
We might miss out on good things because we're so focused on what we don't have, what we think is missing.
Wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
So how do we like break free from this messed up perception.
That's where understanding the other laws of emotion comes in. The second law, it says our self-worth, it's basically like the sum total of all our emotions over time. So if we constantly focus on the negative,
Yeah.
feeling like failures, our self-worth takes a hit, even if we're actually accomplishing things.
So it's not just about what actually happens to us, but how we feel about it.
Exactly.
Our inner monologue really matters.
If you keep telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve good things, well, guess what? That becomes your reality. And this is where hope can get twisted. We start hoping for things that are bad for us, or cling to hopes that just aren't working.
That makes sense, but how do we even know what to hope for? How do we build this healthy, realistic sense of hope that doesn't totally backfire?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
It takes us into, values and beliefs, how those shape what we hope for. And that's where things get a little culty.
Oh, culty. Now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
Well, so last time we were talking about those Newtonian laws of emotion, right? And how they shape our reality.
Yeah, those were really interesting, especially that blue dot effect. Our brains are such tricksters.
They really are, always trying to figure things out, even if it means bending the rules. But today we're going even deeper. We're talking about hope and religion.
Hope and religion. That's a combination I didn't expect. But hey, I'm always up for a good existential debate.
Okay, well, before we go too crazy, remember, we're using religion in a broader sense here. Mark Manson, he says hope fuels all sorts of belief systems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like spiritual ones, ideological ones, even those super personal ones, about relationships.
So my undying loyalty to my sports team, that could be a religion. I knew those playoff tickets were a sacred investment.
Haha, well, there's definitely some faith involved in any diehard fandom, right? But really, Manson's point is that these religions, whatever they are, they offer us a sense of meaning, community, and purpose, a way to understand, our place in the world.
It makes sense, I guess. It's easier to believe in something bigger than ourselves than to face the alternative, that we're just little specks of dust in a giant universe.
Exactly. These belief systems, they're like a shield against that existential dread. Yeah. They give us what Manson calls a God value.
God value.
Yeah, it's the top thing on our value hierarchy, like the ultimate source of meaning, the lens we see everything through.
Okay, so give me some examples. What are some of these religions we might be following without even knowing it? Besides my sports team obsession, obviously.
Well, the obvious ones are the traditional religions, right?
Yeah.
Like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. They offer belief in something higher, a plan, even, an afterlife.
So they're all about finding hope in the face of, death, connecting to something bigger.
Right. But hope isn't just about the supernatural. There are ideological religions, too.
Oh.
Yeah, think about political ideologies or social movements.
Okay.
Even being devoted to certain scientific principles.
So someone's super passionate about, say, environmentalism or a specific economic theory, that could be their ideological religion.
Absolutely. These ideologies, they offer a set of beliefs, values that guide people. They might not have a god, in the traditional way.
Right.
But they offer a picture of a better world, a future to fight for.
And just like with traditional religions, there's usually this us versus them mentality.
Right.
You're either with us or against us kind of thing.
That's definitely common. It's like defining a group identity by who you're not.
Yeah.
It makes the beliefs feel even stronger, brings people together.
Okay, but not every religion is about saving the world or anything. You mentioned those, more personal, interpersonal ones. Still curious about that whole sports fan thing.
Well, that's a perfect example. These interpersonal religions, they're all about relationships.
Okay.
Family, romantic partners, even those intense fan communities you talked about. They give you a feeling of belonging.
Okay.
Love, validation.
So hoping for connection.
Exactly.
Feeling seen.
Hoping those relationships bring you happiness, fulfillment, purpose. Think about romantic love. It's often seen as this quest for a soulmate, someone to complete you.
Yeah. And those breakups can be rough. It's your personal religion just exploded or something.
Yeah.
Which, kind of makes me wonder, if all these religions are based on hope, doesn't that mean they're all kind of, I don't know, made up?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of Manson's argument. He's not saying all beliefs are fake or meaningless.
Okay.
But he's saying that every belief system needs some faith.
So we have to choose what to believe.
Yeah, we're all choosing what to put our hope in.
Wow.
Whether it's a god, a political ideology, or believing your favorite band is, like, the best band ever, no judgment, at some point you have to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Choose to put your hope in a specific vision of the future.
Okay, so how do we choose? Is there like some kind of consumer reports for belief systems? Like this month we're rating monotheism versus polytheism.
Haha, I wish. But no. Manson does give some guidance, though. He says the best belief systems, they encourage growth, resilience, willingness to face those uncomfortable truths we talked about.
So it's not about just blind faith, but choosing what helps us be better people.
Exactly. Finding that balance between hope and reality. And that brings us to this other important idea, the difference between fake freedom and real freedom.
Ooh, fake freedom versus real freedom. This sounds interesting. Tell me more. What's fake freedom?
Well, fake freedom is that illusion of choice that our culture, really pushes. It's the idea that happiness comes from having more stuff.
Okay.
More options, more experiences, that we can buy our way to feeling fulfilled.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's that feeling when you're like online shopping at 2 a.m., filling your cart with things you don't need but suddenly have to have.
Bingo! It's that instant gratification thing, the idea that happiness is one click away. And it's all fueled by clever marketing,
Yeah.
playing on our insecurities and wants.
Speaking of clever marketing, Manson talks about this guy, Edward Bernays, like the father of public relations. He was using, get this, Freudian psychology to make people buy stuff way back in the 1900s.
Oh, yeah, he was good at it. Bernays, he understood people's desires. He's the one who convinced women to start smoking by linking cigarettes to the women's liberation movement.
Oh, no, talk about fake freedom. You're not liberating yourself, you're just becoming a customer.
Exactly. And the problem with this always wanting more, this chase for pleasure, is it can backfire. It leads to feeling empty, dissatisfied, anxious.
It's like that saying, the more you have, the more you want. Or maybe it should be, the more you have, the less satisfied you are. Yeah. It's kind of depressing, but,
True. It's the paradox of choice, right?
Right.
Too many options can make us feel overwhelmed and less happy with what we choose. So much for freedom.
So what's the alternative? If fake freedom is all about chasing stuff, what's real freedom? And where does hope fit into all of this?
Great question. It takes us to this idea of self-limitation and the surprising idea that sometimes less is more.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The psychology of hope, all those different religions, fake freedom versus real freedom. But now things are about to get really interesting.
Oh, how so?
Because now we're bringing artificial intelligence into the mix.
Ah, yes. So we've talked about how wanting more and more can actually trap us in this fake freedom, right?
Yeah.
And how real freedom comes from setting limits, being okay with being a little uncomfortable. But what happens when AI gets so smart that it starts, shaping our reality, our values, maybe even our hopes?
Okay, now we're getting into some serious sci-fi territory. It's like, if technology can create meaning for us, does that make it any less real? Or are we just, outsourcing our existential crisis to algorithms, passing the buck, so to speak?
That's a really interesting question. And actually, Mark Manson, he talks about this too. He brings up AlphaZero.
AlphaZero?
Yeah, that AI Google made that taught itself to play chess, at a crazy high level.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Didn't it beat, the world's best chess engine just a few hours after learning the game?
It did. And it wasn't just about calculating all the possible moves, AlphaZero, it came up with strategies that were totally new. Even the best chess players in the world, they were baffled.
Wow. So if AI can outsmart us at chess, what's stopping it from outsmarting us in everything else? Like politics, economics, figuring out, the meaning of life. Are we all going to be bowing down to robot overlords soon?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But Manson, he does argue that as AI gets more powerful, it could start influencing our values and beliefs in ways we don't even realize. It might even become this ultimate hope provider, creating these made-up conflicts and stories to keep us distracted and hooked.
Wait, so it's like the Matrix, but instead of using us for energy, they're using us for our attention.
Kinda, yeah. It's a little creepy when you think about it.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where what we hope for, even what we're afraid of, is being controlled by algorithms that just want to keep us clicking and scrolling.
But honestly, isn't technology already doing that in some ways? Social media, it's basically a hope machine, right? Promising us connection, validation, all that.
That's true. We're already seeing how algorithms can shape our actions, even our opinions. The question is, where do we draw the line? Will we become slaves to these distractions, or can we use AI for good?
Man, that is a tough question. So what's the takeaway here? Are we all doomed to become, like, mindless consumers in an AI-powered world? Should I start building my underground bunker now?
Hold on, no need to panic just yet. Remember, hope isn't just about wishing for things. It's about taking action, choosing what to believe in, and fighting for it. And that fight, it might look different in a world with super smart AI, but it doesn't mean we've already lost.
So what are we fighting for then? How do we stay hopeful when algorithms are shaping our reality?
It starts with being aware, I think. We have to be careful about the information we take in, question the stories we're told, recognize those fake freedom traps and choose real freedom instead.
Right. Real freedom, setting limits, facing those uncomfortable things head on, focusing on what matters. So it's less about rejecting technology completely and more about being smart about how we use it.
Exactly. Real freedom, that anti-fragile mindset, it comes from making our own choices, not letting algorithms make them for us, taking control of our values, our beliefs, and, yeah, our hopes.
Wow, this has been quite a journey. We've talked about so much, from how our minds work to the different ways we find meaning, and now we're facing this whole new world with AI.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. But I guess if there's one thing we can take away from all this, it's that hope isn't something that just happens to us, right? It's a choice we make, an active thing, like a muscle we have to work out.
Well said. So as we figure out this crazy, tech-filled world, let's remember we still have the power to choose what we believe in, what we hope for, and how we shape our future.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And if you want to dive deeper into all these ideas, definitely check out Mark Manson's book, Everything is Fcked. It really makes you think about hope, meaning, and the choices we make every day.
It does.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder all those big questions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into hope. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep hoping.